Hey guys, Mr. V here with another recorder time for you. Today I'm going to talk to you about what I call the big three. These are the big three things that I always check when I'm looking to make sure that my sound is the best that it could possibly be. And if I find myself squeaking or playing in a way that doesn't seem quite right, I always check these three things. First is air. If I find myself squeaking a lot and it sounds something like this, I am blowing with too much pressure when it comes to air. So I can check this and use an exercise to practice it in two ways. Way number one is to put my hand about recorder length away from my face, and then I can whisper that to sound. If I can barely feel the air on my hand, then I'm doing it at the right pressure. If I can't feel it at all, or I can feel it a lot because I'm blowing really hard, then I know I'm using too much. Another good way to check this is to get some bubbles, the kind that you blow from home, or things like that. They show up in sometimes maybe as a stocking stuffer or a toy or something like that. When you blow a bubble, if you blow too hard, it just kind of pops, or if you blow too easy, bubbles won't appear. So one good exercise to do with bubbles is either to pretend or get real bubbles and to blow those bubbles with a to sound. That's what you're looking for. So blowing with softer air, you can try to play that again and see if that fixes your problem. Nice. In this case, I was blowing with too hard of air. If you're squeaking and your squeaks kind of sound like either of these things, here's way number one. You hear how it squeaks and then it backs up to a good sound? That time I know that my tongue is going too hard. With a hard T, that's not what you want. You want a light T sound. Some teachers will say a hard D sound, and that's fine. But for me, sometimes that gets kids to start using their voices too, and we don't want to use our voice. It's just a whisper sound. So I say whisper with a light T. The other problem with tonguing you might run into is they might be playing something that sounds fine, but the notes are kind of blending together. Or you see their body, either their cheeks or their shoulders, are starting to play with it like this. This is when you're not using the tongue and you're just controlling it with your breath. See how my body's kind of bouncing? That's not going to help me play faster. I'm not using my tongue at all. I'm just going... And that's not what you want either. You always want that light T tongue flicking the back of your teeth or just behind your teeth at the roof of your mouth. In fact, what I'm doing with my hand here is what I have my students do to practice that. They flick their hand like this when they play and they say, or when they play recorder. And that helps their brain associate this movement with what their tongue should be doing. So that's a good idea to try. So that's the next one to check is tongue. After that, the last one, holes. You have to make sure your holes are covered all the way. If you're playing and it starts to sound just like really wimpy, and when you change the different notes for the different holes and it doesn't really sound that much different, it's probably because you're not covering the holes all the way. When I say that, I mean like, here's the hole covered all the way, but if there's a little bit peeking out, it's going to have a really wimpy sound where nothing changes. Kind of like this. If that's happening, you should probably check to make sure you're covering the holes all the way. And here's what I do to have kids practice with that. I have them hold a note, any note. In this case, I'm going to pick B, so that's thumb on the back hole and pointer on the top with your left hand on top, of course. I'm going to squeeze that for about 10 seconds. Not too hard, just kind of hard. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now when I look at my finger, you can see, hopefully, if the light cooperates, kind of a little bit of a circle on the tip of your finger. It's a little bit better on the thumb right there. When you can see that full circle around, you know that you're covering the hole all the way. If you don't see a full circle, you know you're not. So after you try that, if you notice that's not what you're doing, you have to do remembering two things about covering the holes. Number one is using that fatty part of your finger, especially for those of you that have skinny fingers. And number two, to squeeze just ever so slightly. It's not gripping, it's just a light squeeze and that kind of stuff like that. So, after you check those three things, air, am I blowing softly? Tongue, am I using a light T sound, where my tongue just flicks the back of my teeth or the roof of my mouth behind my teeth? And am I covering the holes all the way? If you check these three things, this will actually take care of 99% of the problems when it comes to recorder sound. Especially the air one. That's the big one in the beginning. And then towards the end, as you get really good, it becomes about the holes. The more fingers you have, the more you might be missing the holes a little bit. So, checking those three things will take care of 99% of your problems. If at that point there's still stuff going on, maybe there's something wrong with your recorder, but you've got to honestly check those things. Just don't go, oh, my recorder's broken, and stuff like that. It's probably not. So, if you're practicing a song and you're squeaking, check these three things and slow it down. Check these three things and slowing down. These are the big three: air, tongue, and holes. So while you practice your songs, always be constantly checking for that, because that's how we create a good recorder sound. So, take this knowledge and, as always, keep on practicing.